Zanele was a kind and devoted wife who believed she had a perfect marriage. She and her husband Tao lived in the village of Lumbwe, where they were well respected. Tao was a successful businessman, admired for his sharp mind and strong leadership, while Zanele was known for her generosity and kindness. She helped those in need, treating everyone with warmth and compassion. As their 10th wedding anniversary approached, Zanele felt grateful for the life she shared with Tao. She wanted to make the occasion special, to celebrate the love and commitment they had built over the years. With excitement in her heart, she planned a grand surprise, eager to see the joy on Tao's face when he realized how much she cherished him. She had no idea that her world was about to crumble. Zanelle had no idea that while she was busy planning a beautiful anniversary surprise, her husband Tao was hiding a terrible secret. For months, he had been having an affair with Letha, Zanele's childhood best friend. The two women had grown up together, sharing dreams, laughter, and sisterly love. Zanele had always trusted Letha, never imagining that the person she considered a sister would betray her in the worst way possible. Letha had always been envious of Zanele. She watched as her friend built a happy home with a loving husband and a respected name in the village. Though she smiled in front of Zanele, deep inside, she burned with jealousy. She wanted what Zanele had, her home, her happiness, her life. When Tao, unaware of Letha's true intentions, began to confide in her about the little frustrations of marriage, Letha saw her opportunity. She whispered poisonous words into his ears, making him believe that he deserved more, that he needed excitement, that Zanele had become too predictable. At first, Tao resisted. He knew his wife was a good woman, and he had once loved her deeply. But Letha was relentless. She made him feel special, desired, and young again. Slowly, he gave in. Their meetings started innocently, just secret conversations in the quiet corners of the village. But soon, it turned into stolen moments, hidden touches, and forbidden nights. The villagers began to notice. A businessman like Tao, always seen as a man of honor, was now spending too much time with a woman who was not his wife. The whispers started in the market, among the women selling fruits and fabric. They spoke in hushed tones, watching as Tao and Letha disappeared into the shadows, returning with guilty smiles. Some felt sorry for Zanele. How could she be so blind? How could she not see what was happening right in front of her? Others were too afraid to tell her. She was kind and beloved, and no one wanted to be the one to break her heart. Even those closest to her hesitated. They hoped she would find out on her own, that somehow the truth would reveal itself without their interference. As the affair deepened, Tao became more careless. He stayed out late, made excuses, and avoided Zanele's touch. He thought he was being discreet, but in a village as small as Lumbwe, secrets never stayed hidden for long. Letha, confident that she had Tao wrapped around her finger, encouraged him to take bigger risks. Zanele, still unaware of the betrayal, continued to love and trust both of them. She was preparing a celebration for their 10-year anniversary, planning the perfect night to show Tao how much he meant to her. But while she was planning a future, her husband was planning his escape, and soon, the truth would shatter everything she believed in. At first, Zanele didn't think much of it. Tao had always been a busy man, running his business and attending to village matters. But lately, something felt different. He started coming home late, always with a new excuse: important meetings, business trips, unexpected delays. When he was home, he seemed distant, lost in his thoughts, barely looking her in the eye. She tried to ignore the sinking feeling in her chest. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe work was stressing him out. But then, there were the little things. He no longer left his phone lying around like he used to. If it rang, he would quickly silence it or step outside to answer. If she asked who it was, he would brush it off with a vague reply. And the warmth between them, the laughter, the affection, the simple moments of love, seemed to be fading like a candle burning low. Zanele told herself it was just her imagination. She didn't want to doubt her husband. After all, they had been together for 10 years. They had built a life, a home, and a love that she believed was unshakable. Why would he betray her now? One afternoon, her younger sister, Kaiser, rushed into her home, breathless and upset. Zanele had been weaving a basket, humming softly to herself, when Kaiser grabbed her arm. "Sister, I need to tell you something," Kaiser whispered, looking around as if someone might be listening. Zanele frowned. "What is it?" Kaiser hesitated, then spoke quickly, as if afraid she might change her mind. "I was at the market today, and I heard people talking. They said they have seen Tao with Letha. More than once. They say it's not just friendship. Zanele's heart skipped a beat. She let out a small laugh, shaking her head. That's ridiculous, Kaiser. You know how people love to gossip in this village. Tao and Letha have known each other for years. She's like family to us. Kaiser grabbed her hands. Zanele, listen to me. They weren't just talking. They said they saw them, sneaking around, meeting in secret. People are starting to wonder why you haven't noticed. Zanele pulled her hands away gently. Enough, Kaiser. I trust my husband, and I trust Letha. I won't let foolish gossip ruin my marriage. Kaiser sighed, frustration in her eyes. I just don't want you to get hurt. Zanele forced a smile, trying to push away the growing unease in her chest. Thank you for worrying about me, but there's nothing to worry about. Now, let's forget this nonsense. But as Kaiser left, the doubt had already planted itself in Zanele's heart. That night, when Tao came home late once again, she found herself watching him differently. When he avoided her touch, she felt the ache of loneliness. And when he turned his phone away from her eyes, she wondered, for the first time, if the whispers in the market had been telling the truth. Zanelle was determined to make their 10th anniversary the most special day of their lives. She wanted Tao to see how much she loved him, to remind him of the bond they had built over the years. She spent days carefully planning the celebration, choosing his favorite dishes, arranging decorations, and selecting the perfect gift. Even though the whispers about Tao and Letha had unsettled her, she refused to let doubt ruin her happiness. She convinced herself that people were simply jealous of her marriage, trying to create problems where none existed. One evening, as she was setting up a surprise in Tao's study, she noticed something unusual. A small envelope peeked out from under a pile of papers on his desk. It wasn't like Tao to leave letters lying around. Curiosity got the best of her, and she reached for it, expecting to find a business document or a note from a client. But as she opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside, her entire world shattered. The handwriting was Letha's. Zanele recognized it instantly. Her hands trembled as she read the words that would break her heart forever. My love, our time is near. After the anniversary, we will finally be free. I cannot wait to start our new life together, far away from this village. No more hiding, no more secrets. Just you and me, as it was always meant to be. Zanele felt the room spinning around her. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. She could hardly breathe. It wasn't just an affair. Tao and Letha were planning to leave her. They were waiting for her to celebrate 10 years of love and devotion, only to betray her completely. She clutched the letter, her heart pounding in her chest. Every moment of doubt, every whisper, every late night, all of it had been true. She wanted to scream, to cry, to confront Tao and demand answers. But as the pain settled in her chest, another feeling rose within her, strength. She took a deep breath and wiped her tears. She would not let them see her broken. She would not let them think they had won. Instead of confronting Tao immediately, she made a decision. She would wait. She would let him believe that she was still the trusting wife, still the loving woman who had no idea what was coming. Placing the letter back where she found it, she composed herself and walked out of the study. She would go through with the anniversary celebration, but not in the way Tao expected. He thought he had planned the perfect escape, but he was wrong. Zanele would not let her pain destroy her. She would act wisely. She would make sure that when the truth was revealed, it would be Tao and Letha who would feel the greatest shame. The day of the anniversary arrived, and Zanelle made sure everything was perfect. The village square was decorated beautifully, with lanterns hanging from the trees and tables filled with delicious food. The villagers gathered, smiling and excited to celebrate a couple they had admired for years. Music filled the air, and laughter echoed all around. Zanele moved through the crowd, greeting guests with a warm smile, hiding the storm raging inside her heart. Tao arrived at the celebration, dressed in his finest attire, wearing the confident smile of a man who believed he had everything under control. He looked around, taking in the grand setup, and felt a sense of pride. Zanele had always been the perfect wife, devoted, loving, and blind to the truth. He convinced himself that his secret was still safe. Letha was there too, dressed elegantly, blending into the crowd as if she had done nothing wrong. She moved gracefully, exchanging pleasantries, but her eyes constantly searched for Tao. They both knew this would be their last night in Lumbwe, before they disappeared together. Zanele watched them from a distance, her expression unreadable. She had spent the past few days in silent agony, pretending everything was fine, while her heart ached with betrayal. But tonight was different. Tonight, she wasn't a broken woman. She was a woman ready to take back her power. As the night progressed, Zanele took the stage, holding a beautifully wrapped box in her hands. The crowd fell silent, eager to hear what she had to say. "My dear husband," she began, her voice calm and steady. "Tonight, we celebrate 10 years of love, trust, and partnership. I have prepared a special gift for you, a memory to cherish forever." Tao smiled, stepping forward, pretending to be the devoted husband. He reached for the gift, but Zanele shook her head. "Not yet," she said with a small smile. "Let's share this moment with everyone." She turned to the large white sheet hanging at the center of the square. With a nod, a young boy pulled a rope, revealing a projection screen. The villagers gasped as images began to appear. Tao and Letha, meeting in secret, holding hands, sharing stolen kisses. The pictures told a story of betrayal that no one could deny. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Tao's face drained of color, and Letha took a step back, her hands shaking. The villagers murmured in shock, their admiration for the couple turning into whispers of disappointment and anger. Zanele turned to Tao, her eyes filled with quiet strength. "Thank you for 10 years of memories," she said softly, her voice carrying through the night. "But I will not spend another day with a man who does not value me." She turned and walked away, leaving Tao and Letha standing in the center of their shame. The celebration that had begun in their honor ended with their disgrace. The celebration was in full swing, laughter and music filling the air as the villagers enjoyed the feast. The lights flickered softly, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Tao sat at the head table, a proud smile on his face, believing he had once again fooled everyone. Letha sat nearby, pretending to be just another guest, but her eyes kept darting toward Tao, a silent understanding passing between them. They thought they had everything under control. Then, Zanele stood up, clapping her hands gently to get everyone's attention. The crowd quieted as she took center stage, holding a small remote in her hand. Her smile was warm, but there was something in her eyes that made Tao shift uncomfortably in his seat. "My dear husband," Zanele began, her voice steady, "tonight is a special night, a night to celebrate love, loyalty, and the journey we have taken together. And what better way to do that than by looking back at our beautiful memories?" The villagers clapped, nodding in agreement. They had always admired Zanele and Tao's marriage, believing it to be strong and filled with love. Tao forced a grin, though his hands grew clammy. Something about Zanele's tone made his heart pound faster. With a press of a button, the large white sheet at the center of the square lit up, revealing the first slide. It was a picture of Tao and Zanele on their wedding day, their faces glowing with happiness. The villagers smiled and murmured in admiration. Then, the next slide showed them holding their newborn son years ago, then another of them laughing together on a trip. The images were warm and full of love. But then, something changed. The next picture flashed onto the screen, and a ripple of confusion passed through the crowd. It showed Tao in a secluded part of the village, standing a little too close to someone. Before anyone could process it, the next image appeared, Tao holding Letha's hand, then another, showing them embracing in secret, and another of them sharing a kiss. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Murmurs grew louder. Faces turned toward Tao and Letha, eyes wide with disbelief. Tao's face turned pale, his mouth opening, but no words came out. Letha shrank back, her hands trembling. Zanele remained calm, her eyes scanning the crowd before finally settling on Tao. "I wanted everyone to see the truth," she said softly, her voice carrying through the stunned silence. "Tao, you gave me 10 years of marriage, and for that, I thank you. But today, I give you a gift in return, the freedom you clearly wanted." She turned to the crowd. "From this moment on, my marriage to Tao is over." The villagers erupted in shocked whispers. Tao stumbled forward, desperation in his eyes. "Zanele, please, let me explain." But she had already turned away, walking off the stage with quiet dignity. She had given her final gift, and now she was free. The once proud Tao stood frozen in the middle of the village square, his face drained of color as the whispers and murmurs around him grew louder. The celebration had turned into a spectacle of shame, and everyone had seen the truth. Zanele was gone, walking away with her head held high, leaving him behind to face the weight of his own betrayal. He rushed after her, his voice breaking as he called her name. "Zanele, please, just listen to me." But she didn't stop. She didn't turn back. She had heard all the lies she would ever need to hear from him. The villagers, who once respected Tao as a successful businessman, now looked at him with disgust. They shook their heads, whispering about his foolishness. He had everything: a loving wife, a good home, a thriving business, and he had thrown it all away for a moment of pleasure. Letha stood to the side, trembling, as she felt the piercing stares of the villagers. She tried to meet their eyes, but everywhere she turned, she saw disappointment, anger, and judgment. Even her own family refused to look at her. Her mother, a proud and respected woman, stepped forward with a cold stare. "You are no daughter of mine," she said before turning her back on her. The rejection cut deeper than she had expected, and for the first time, fear filled her heart. As the days passed, Tao's downfall became even more severe. His business, which once flourished with the support of the village, started to collapse. His customers no longer trusted him, refusing to buy from a man who had betrayed the very values they respected. One by one, his business partners withdrew their support, unwilling to be associated with him. Desperation set in. He went to Letha, hoping that at least she would stand by him. After all, she had whispered sweet words to him, told him he deserved better, convinced him that they were meant to be. But Letha was no fool. She had never wanted a broken man. One evening, as Tao sat outside his empty shop, drowning in regret, Letha approached him. For a moment, hope flickered in his tired eyes, but that hope was crushed when she placed a small bundle of his belongings at his feet. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice cold and detached. "Letha, please, you said we would be together," Tao pleaded, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. "I didn't sign up for this," she snapped. "I wanted more, not less." Without another word, she turned and walked away, just as he had once walked away from Zanele. Tao was left with nothing. No wife, no business, no friends, just regret. And as he sat there, staring at the empty streets of the village, he realized the bitter truth. He had traded gold for dust, and now there was no one left to save him. Zanele could have let heartbreak consume her, but she refused to let Tao's betrayal define her future. She wiped her tears, straightened her shoulders, and decided to rebuild her life, not for revenge, but for herself. She had spent years pouring love and effort into her marriage, but now it was time to pour that same energy into her own dreams. With the little savings she had left, she started a small trade business in the village market. At first, it wasn't easy. People whispered, watching her closely, wondering if she would crumble under the weight of her humiliation. But Zanele remained steady. She sold fabrics, beads, and handmade baskets, working tirelessly from sunrise to sunset. Her warm smile never faded, and her kindness never wavered, even after all she had been through. The women of the village took notice. Many had suffered in silence, trapped in unhappy marriages, or forced to accept betrayal because they had no independence. But Zanele had shown them something different. She had walked away from her pain with dignity and created something new for herself. She became an inspiration, a quiet reminder that a woman's worth was not tied to a man's loyalty. As the months passed, her business grew. Traders from neighboring villages came to buy her goods, impressed by her craftsmanship and determination. She expanded, hiring other women who needed work, giving them a chance to stand on their own feet. Soon, Zanele was not just surviving, she was thriving. The same villagers who once pitied her now spoke of her with admiration. They no longer whispered about her as the woman who had been betrayed, but as the woman who had risen from the ashes, stronger than before. Mothers pointed her out to their daughters, telling them, "Be like Zanele, stand tall, no matter what life throws at you." And through it all, she never let bitterness take root in her heart. She did not seek revenge against Tao or Letha. Their downfall had come naturally, without her lifting a finger. She had something far more powerful than revenge: success, peace, and the knowledge that she had built something beautiful out of the pain they left behind. One evening, as she stood in front of her shop, watching the sunset over Lumbwe, she smiled to herself. She had found a new purpose, a new strength she never knew she had. She was no longer just Tao's wife, or the woman he had betrayed. She was Zanele, a survivor, a leader, and a woman who had turned her pain into power. Years had passed, but for Tao, time had not been kind. The once respected businessman of Lumbwe was now nothing more than a shadow of his former self. His clothes, once neatly pressed and elegant, now hung loosely on his frail body. His face, once full of pride, was now lined with regret. He had lost everything: his business, his reputation, and the love of the woman who had once given him her whole heart. Letha had left him long ago. The moment his business crumbled, and he had no more money to spoil her, she walked away without a second thought. He had been foolish to believe she truly loved him. She had only wanted the life Zanele had built, but she had no patience to help build it herself. Now, Tao was alone. abandoned by the very woman he had risked everything for. He spent his days wandering through the village, unseen and unwanted. The villagers, once respectful, now barely acknowledged him. When they did, it was only to whisper about how he had thrown away a diamond for a handful of dust. He would hear them talk about Zanele, how she had become a successful businesswoman, how she was admired by all, and how she had rebuilt her life without looking back. Sometimes he would see her from a distance. She looked more beautiful than ever, her face glowing with happiness and confidence. She laughed freely, surrounded by friends, respected by the village, and at peace with herself. It pained him to know that he had once been the man beside her, the one she had loved with all her heart, and he had destroyed it all for a fleeting moment of selfish pleasure. Desperate to ease the weight of his regret, he wrote her letters. In them, he poured out his heart, begging for forgiveness, asking for just one moment to talk. He told her he had made the worst mistake of his life, that he wished he could turn back time, that he would do anything to undo the pain he had caused her. But Zanele never responded. He would sit outside his small, run-down hut, waiting for a reply that never came. Each passing day, he hoped she would send him even a single word, but the silence remained. Deep down, he knew why. Some betrayals could never be undone. Some wounds could never be healed with apologies. And so, he lived with his regret, watching from the sidelines as the woman he had once taken for granted thrived without him. He had thought he was trading his life for something more exciting, something better. But now, he understood the painful truth. He had thrown away gold for dust, and there was no way to get it back. As the years passed, Zanele's heart slowly healed. She had built a life of strength, independence, and success. The pain of betrayal no longer consumed her. Instead, she focused on the future, on the life she had created for herself. She had learned to stand tall without relying on anyone. Then one day, she met Kwame. He was a traveling merchant who often visited Lumbwe, bringing rare fabrics, spices, and goods from distant lands. He was different from Tao in every way. Where Tao had been proud and selfish, Kwame was humble and kind. Where Tao had taken her love for granted, Kwame cherished every moment he spent with her. At first, Zanele was hesitant. She had been hurt before, and she was not sure if she could ever open her heart again. But Kwame was patient. He did not rush her, nor did he try to impress her with grand promises. Instead, he showed his love through actions, helping her with her business, listening to her dreams, and treating her with the respect she had always deserved. Slowly, Zanele found herself smiling more. She laughed again, not just with her lips, but with her heart. Love, she realized, was not supposed to feel like a burden. It was supposed to be light, easy, and safe. With Kwame, she felt all of that, and more. When the villagers learned of Zanele's new love, they were overjoyed. They had watched her rise from pain and betrayal to success and strength. Now they were happy to see her find love again, this time with a man who truly valued her. One evening, under the golden sunset, Kwame took her hand and looked deep into her eyes. "Zanele," he said softly, "I don't want to take away the life you have built. I just want to walk beside you and share in it." Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the deep, warm feeling of being truly loved. This was different. This was right. When they finally announced their union, the entire village celebrated. There was music, dancing, and joy in the air. But the greatest happiness of all was the one shining in Zanele's heart. She had found love again, not in desperation, not in need, but in strength and choice. She had once believed her story ended in heartbreak, but now she knew better. Her story was not about betrayal. It was about survival, growth, and a love that came when she was finally ready to receive it. As she stood beside Kwame, surrounded by the laughter and cheers of the people who loved her, she knew this was her new beginning. And this time, it was on her own terms. Tao sat alone outside his small, crumbling house, staring into the empty street. The once proud businessman, who had walked through Lumbwe with confidence and pride, was now a man stripped of everything: his wealth, his reputation, and the love he had so carelessly thrown away. His clothes were worn, his eyes sunken with regret, and his heart heavy with the choices he had made. He had written countless letters to Zanele, each one filled with apologies, but she had never responded. Deep down, he knew why. Some betrayals could never be undone. The pain he had caused her was not something that words could erase. He had been blinded by greed and temptation. believing that Letha would bring him a new kind of happiness. Instead, she had left him the moment his fortune crumbled. Now, Tao was a man living in the shadow of his past. Everywhere he went, he heard whispers. The villagers spoke of his downfall, not with anger, but as a warning. A man who traded gold for dust, they called him. Children whispered the story of his betrayal as a lesson about choices and consequences. But while Tao's life had fallen apart, Zanele's had flourished. She had become a symbol of strength, a woman who had turned her pain into power. Women in the village looked up to her, inspired by the way she had rebuilt herself. Mothers told their daughters her story, teaching them to value themselves and never settle for less than they deserved. One evening, as Tao walked through the village, he heard laughter coming from the marketplace. He turned and saw Zanele standing beside Kwame, her new husband. She was radiant, happier than he had ever seen her before. The sight of her cut deep, but he knew he had no right to interrupt her happiness. He lowered his head and walked away. He had once been the man she loved, the man she trusted with her heart, but he had thrown it all away for a fleeting moment of pleasure. Now, all he had left were memories and regret. As he sat alone that night, listening to the quiet sounds of the village, he finally understood the true cost of his mistakes. He had lost not just a wife, but a woman who had given him everything, her love, her trust, and her loyalty, and in return, he had given her nothing but pain. Zanele's story would be told for generations, not just as a tale of betrayal, but as a lesson in self-worth. And Tao, he would be remembered as the man who had everything but lost it all. Late at night, Zanele sat by the window of her new home, the soft glow of a lantern lighting up the paper in front of her. Outside, the night was calm, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of the marketplace and the quiet hum of a village at rest. She dipped her pen into the ink, her hands steady, her heart at peace. For years, Tao had sent her letters filled with regret, begging for forgiveness, hoping for a second chance. She had read them all, but she never responded. She had no anger left in her, no bitterness weighing her down. Time had healed her wounds, and her new life had filled the empty spaces in her heart. But she knew that before she completely closed this chapter, she had to give him the one thing he had been asking for, an answer. With a deep breath, she wrote her final words to him. Tao, I forgave you long ago, but I will never forget. Some betrayals can never be undone. I have moved on, and I hope one day you will too. This is my last letter. May you find peace in your own way. She read the words over, making sure they held the truth she wanted to express. There was no hatred in them, no desire for revenge, only honesty and closure. She sealed the letter and handed it to a messenger, giving him simple instructions. Deliver this to Tao, and tell him there will be no more letters after this. As the messenger disappeared into the night, Zanele felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had won, not by fighting, not by seeking revenge, but by choosing peace. She had rebuilt her life, found love again, and earned the respect of everyone around her. Tao's betrayal had not broken her, it had made her stronger. She stepped outside, where Kwame was waiting for her, his warm smile filled with understanding. Without a word, he took her hand, leading her toward the village square, where music and laughter filled the air. Zanele smiled, realizing that this was her life now, one filled with love, joy, and a future untouched by the pain of the past. The story of Tao and Zanele would live on in the village, but not as a tragedy. It would be told as a lesson in strength, self-respect, and the power of moving forward. And as Zanele danced under the stars, she knew one thing for certain: some battles are not won with anger, but with grace.